Hey guys, we are in another episode of Why the Pros Play. In this case, it is another healer. It is going to be Deckard Cain. Yes, I've done a Why the Pros Play about Deckard Cain before, but that was back in 2018, I believe. So it's been a little while, and I still want to come back and talk about Deckard Cain a little bit because he is a powerful healer, but he is used a little bit differently in the pro scene than he is in Storm League. So I want to talk about those differences. If you guys are unfamiliar with this series is all about trying to determine and analyze why the pros are playing these heroes. With money on the line, there is money that these teams can earn. They have to put money on the line to decide which heroes they are going to bring for a prized event. And these are the heroes they chose when, again, they could lose a lot of money. I mean, it's not really theirs until they win, but you get the idea. So what these heroes bring to the table is what we're going to be watching. In this case, we have Deckard Cain. Why is Deckard Cain played? And to start the series off, I always like to explain why the pros play it. Then we go into the early, mid, late game, and I explain a little bit about what you can do to bring this into your Storm League games and what I would recommend because of that. So, Deckard Cain is played in the competitive environment because he is the healer with the best engage in the game. He has the roots and slows that almost no one else really brings, and he also just has an incredible amount of utility that not a lot of other healers bring. The amount of healing he brings out is a little bit lower in the middle of fights, but he does have a bit more setup that a lot of healers can't do, where he can set up a lot of his heals before a fight starts. You can see right there, an extra slow was all it takes to take out that Kira. And he also has amazing team fights as long as they're relatively short. And so you can find ways to abuse that. One further thing that Deckard has is if you do win a team fight without using your trait after level 13, your trait can add an incredible amount of siege damage, allowing your team to get so much more out of a team fight victory than other teams. So those are the primary reasons why Deckard is played. He's got incredible utility, he's got a great engage, and he also brings kind of a setup for team fights, which most other healers bring that. Really powerful in the late game, and he's not bad in the early to mid game. So because of that, let's talk a little bit about how his early, mid, and late game goes. In the early portions of the game on Deckard, you should be just throwing as many potions out as possible. You can cover waves of soak if your team's not covering it. I like to usually throw a couple potions in one lane, rotate to another lane, which is exactly what he's doing. He threw a couple potions in mid lane, rotated to bottom lane. In this case, he has one potion just there. But that's kind of the basic idea of what you want to be doing in the early portions, is setting those up. Before the first objective of the game, you usually want to set up a couple potions around this top area. I didn't really talk about the player too much. This is on the team of Simplicity. The Simplicity's actually been doing really, really well as of when I made this video. I don't know when I'm going to publish this video, but as when I made this video, they just won 3 different series in a row and eliminated 3 different teams from CCL, period. So they are a very, very good team, and Legacy is a solid healer. Legacy has been known to have one of the best healer roster pools in North America. While I don't believe Legacy has ever played on a professional team in HGC, he has played on competitive teams ever since HGC, and again, he's known for having one of the largest rosters in North America. What I mean by having a large roster is you cannot just play a lot of heroes, but you're very good at a lot of heroes. So before the objective even spawns, he sets up 5 potions a little bit outside of the objective, because he doesn't want the objective minions to do a little bit of damage to someone and then you accidentally pick up a potion that's supposed to heal for like 300 and you heal it for just like 17 because the minion did. So he kind of spreads out the potions, but he keeps them near the objective. He stays near this objective for when his team shows up, but it looks like his team's just giving up this first objective. And it's probably because they have rough power spikes against the enemy team. Hogger can clear the objective very quickly, and the enemies are kind of bully heavy right now in these first few levels without their ults being available. So let's talk a little bit about his early game build. He takes Sapphire. Sapphire is that incredible engage that I was talking about. You can do a huge slow on people, I believe 65%, which gives them a big enough slow to where they get hit by the root. After the root, your team can easily follow up with any sort of CC that they want to, and you get to set up that slow from so far away that it allows your team to follow up these insane engages. and it's so powerful. So right there, you saw he set up an engage from nothing, and then his team was able to follow up the next fight and win that one as well. They did lose the objective, but he still was able to set up an amazing engage for his team. His level 4 talent is Potion of Shielding. Now, in the competitive environment, most of the damage dealt is dealt fast. So having this shield is huge, because not only is it going to help against burst damage, but it's also just going to help in constant damage that keeps going out when you just need to have that healing right away. Rejuve Potion technically will heal more on average, because any shield that doesn't get healed just is gone. Where the Rejuve Potion, as long as you're missing health, you'll get the healing out of it, but it's oftentimes a little too slow to get value. Ruby requires a little bit too much movement, so against targets that are CC'd, you don't get any value off of that either. So in the competitive environment, we see the Potion of Shielding more often than not. Level 13, he goes Emerald. Emerald is really powerful in this meta where a lot of people are running Bruisers. And again, you see everything that he's doing. He's following up with combos. Generally, if his team engages for him, he'll use Emerald. And if he needs to engage for his team, he'll run Sapphire. But Emerald's really powerful because a lot of Bruisers have a ton of self-healing, so this mitigates a lot of the self-healing, and it also mitigates a lot of the healing. Being able to throw a 75% healing reduction on a team your team is on a player your team is already attacking is going to be huge at leading to that kill, because the healer can't save them. Where you're going to be saving targets with Potion of Shielding, the enemy healer can't save them because they're going to have their healing reduced by 75% for 4 seconds. Where Ana's healing grenade reduces it by 100%, it's only for 1.75 seconds. So to reduce healing for more than twice the amount of time as Ana, Deckard actually almost ends up being a better Ana, with the only downside you don't have Nano Boost, but you have a better engage than Ana, and you have almost a better healing reduction than Ana. You just don't have a Nano Boost. So in this particular case, you can see he ends up using Sapphire to disengage. Then he uses his Stay a While to counter engage, and that ends up leading to another kill that they likely wouldn't have gotten without that engage and counter engage. Then this time he uses Emerald to slow them enough to where his tank can go in. But Masquerade is on a little bit of higher ping, so he's not able to follow up that. He stands there because he wants to be pushed against the wall and force her into a bad position. He ends up just breaking it off, and so he just goes for the kill anyway. And so we can see he is just setting up for roots and healing reductions and slows left and right, and his team is just following up everything. My big problem with Deckard is that when I play him in Storm League, I can do a lot of the same things that Legacy is doing. I'm setting up these awesome engages, but it's just not really getting the follow-up that you would normally get. I do want to also point out on that wave, he did actually use Sapphire. Now, all of your activatables do increase the damage of your Roderick Cube, so you can use this for a little bit of wave clear. I don't usually recommend using it that way, but it is something that you can do if you just really need to clear up a lane. But yeah, I just don't really like Deckard in Storm League because people just don't follow up. So what I would say is if you are going to play Deckard in Storm League, there are builds that heal a lot more. For example, level 13, grabbing Super Healing Potion instead of Ancient Blessings can increase your healing by a really significant amount, where Ancient Blessings is more for a coordinated environment. And the same thing with, like, instead of going with Emerald, you could go a different direction. Or you can simply play with a team that is a little bit better at following up on things. So in this case, right before he gets hit by Cocoon, he activates Ancient Blessing. When he activates Ancient Blessing, all of his team kind of gets their own healing, because every time that they basic attack, they're going to be doing extra healing. And this method allowed him to set up before he got Cocoon, and also still heal while he was Cocooned. Now he's just working on this. If he ever needs to speed this up, he can pop Emerald and throw out a Roderick Cube just to do that extra damage. But he's expecting the enemies to still try to fight back because they still have a decent amount of skeletal defenders. So he ends up not using any of his other abilities. And that's fine since his team does have the answer to be able to get this infected. So now his team is up 10-1 despite losing the first objective of the game, and despite having a really rough start to this game. He's completely turned it around because he has really powerful early game engages, and when he gets to the mid game, you can engage and disengage at the same time because of your ult and your trait. Because of your ult and your Sapphire. The other cool part about Deckard is how tanky he is. If people jump on Deckard, his shield, or his potion on himself will heal for 468 plus 211 every 3 seconds. I say 3 seconds, it's a 4-second cooldown, but we're actually going to shave off a second because when he's near someone, his abilities recharge 50% faster. If it was 100% faster, we'd shave off 2 seconds, but it's just 50% faster. And he has 10 armor, meaning that he's going to be taking 10% less damage. He's one of the best tanks if people try to dive on him because he's just so hard to deal with. He's able to get an amazing Sapphire, which slows people enough to where they get rooted, which then they're rooted long enough for him to get stay a while, which is long enough for his team to get out of the cocoon and for everyone on his team to get healed back up. And now he's in a great position for just pushing. The Tychus was able to finish off one kill that he set up with that engage. And I mean, this is the thing. If you can make these plays that Legacy's making in every single fight, in the coordinated environment, your team's going to win way more often than they lose. But on top of that, even in Storm League, even teams that aren't following up very well should still see a lot of value from a Deckard playing this way. Yes, there are builds that bring out more healing, and that may be better for you guys to take in Storm League, but this build right here is the build that was ran back in HEC, and for good reason. It's got such an incredible playmaking potential that most other healers don't have, and it also just has a ton of extra utility. Level 16, he takes Herodric's Staff. Now, oftentimes Herodric's Staff is picked against enemy divers. They dive onto you, you stun them, and you walk away. But Legacy ends up playing a little aggressive with it sometimes, where he will use it kind of more like an Uther stun. So he gets out of the cocoon, he pops his trait, he uses his ult to lock people down for long enough to where they get the kill. OC in the back is getting a little low, and so he's just doing his best to throw some potions in a safe position for him. He lands a great root that was with assistance of Yrel, and he leads to 3 kills, all of which were set up. The Anubarak kill was set up by his root, the Hogger kill was set up by his slow, and then the Kira kill was set up by the second root, or vice versa on the Hogger and the Growl kills. And that's pretty much it for Deckard. Early portion of the game, set up very heavily with potions and look to get picks with your slows and roots. When you start reaching the mid game on Deckard, you're going to want to start making plays and combos with your sleeps. And when you start reaching the late game with Deckard, you're going to really be abusing the high utility that you have, by still setting up before objectives, by still landing some crazy combos, but also utilize the Ancient Blessings and potentially either Herodric's Staff or Scroll of Stone Curse. I think, look at that, 630 healing prevented from that. That's like doing an extra 600 damage. That's burst mage damage. That's like throwing a chomp from Orphea, and the fact that you have that damage potential on Deckard is crazy. But yeah, so Herodric's good. I recommend Stone Curse more often than not in Storm League, because this is going to be less valuable, a short stun, and just an extra 1,000 damage is great. As we start reaching the later portions of this game, it's pretty much over. His team has this game, and they can kind of just hide if they want to and make plays, or they can just keep pushing. They've got a 3-level lead at this point, and there's really nothing the enemies can do to come back from it. And this 3-level lead was created by the extra picks that he was able to bring for his team. And while he hasn't participated in all of the kills, he's definitely participated in a significant amount of them. And he set up many of these kills. You can see in team fights, he actually doesn't heal a lot. And this is something that I think people really misunderstand about a lot of healers, is people like Uther and Tyrande and Deckard are competitive, not necessarily because they heal the most as a healer, but more that they bring a lot more utility to the game, even Stukov. And so that's one thing that people don't really see. We've been watching these fights, and he's really not healing that much. He's throwing out a couple potions, he's popping his trait, and then he's just really trying to land good CC or good healing reduction. And again, if you're setting up the fight, Sapphire. If someone else on your team's setting up the fight, Emerald. we can look at his potion placement. I'm actually not a huge fan of this potion placement. I usually like to spread things out a little bit more so that you don't accidentally pick up too many potions. But, I mean, he is a Grandmaster player that's played a lot of Deckards, so feel free to look at this potion placement as potions that you can learn from. But I generally like to spread them out a little bit more like this. And as we're approaching this next fight, they are on even talent tiers, but there is a 12% stat benefit to the side of simplicity. What that means is every level is worth about 4% for health and damage. And so there's 12% more health and damage on the side of simplicity, but otherwise they're at the same talent tier. The last fight Granite Gaming can take against this team, and let's watch how it plays out. Legacy prepares the entire fight by having potions in all the safe positions over here. Their team starts to win the objective by using the Commandeered Odin. We see Kira heading over in this direction, so Legacy decides to kind of move over in this way as the enemy teams are moving over here. He doesn't want to be the first person to die, so he's just making sure that he's in a solid position. We have a lot of damage going on. This is exactly what he was trying to avoid by staying so far over here. He pops his trait because he knows he's about to get hit by a lot of CC. He also throws one potion on himself using an Alt Q, which means that he instantly activates it on himself without throwing it. And again, it's just chaos right now. But he's able to keep himself alive through everything. The entire enemy team focusing him. And he was still able to get off the Fortitude of the Faithful. And we can see that he had already been able to use 2 of the potions that he placed ahead of time. So he's still been able to do work this entire fight, despite being focused and stun-locked by the entire enemy team. And now, he grabs a fountain, and he's going to counter-engage this time. He starts off by getting a lowered healing onto 2 members of their team, which it ends up only being 1, because Yasuo ends up getting a flip. He then throws an ult, which ends up not getting the Hogger because the Hogger was unstoppable. He decides to cancel it relatively early, and then they just go for the push. And it's like, this is what's great about Deckard. He's a tanky healer. It's like Uther. Now, they just go for core. And they can close out the game. And that is it. So, this shows you Deckard Cain. I would recommend playing him a little bit heavier on the healer side if you're going to be playing him in Storm League. Or I'd recommend playing it with friends that can follow up your roots. If you played even with a single mage as a friend that can follow up your roots, then you'll find yourself leading to a lot more kills. You go with a Sapphire into a root, and then you have something like an Orphea who can throw out her E, Q, W auto attack, and you'll lead to a kill almost every time. So if you are going to play Deckard Cain in Storm League, I do personally feel that he's balanced based off of coordinated play, and you may need a little bit of coordinated play to really feel the power of Deckard Cain. Otherwise, play him a little bit heavier on the healing portion of it, and that is why the pros play Deckard Cain and how you can use that in your own games. Thank you guys so much, and feel free to check out my other videos.